All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Prime First Edition Bulkhead, a really fantastic figure. Now, famously, Transformers Prime did kind of have two sections of its toy line, or I guess three if you count Beast Hunters as a separate section than RID, but they did like a first run of figures called the First Edition, which had like Bulkhead and Optimus Prime and a deluxe Optimus Prime and Megatron, and RC and Bumblebee, etc. And then they basically didn't continue with that, and then they released a new toy line called RID, or Robots in Disguise, not the sequel series RID, but just Transformers Prime RID. That was what the toy line was called, just to make it more confusing, which was completely separate molds, and a lot of them kind of felt like sort of downgrades of the characters that we got in First Edition. And Bulkhead, I would say, is definitely the biggest offender of that. His RID figure didn't look fantastic, whereas this is a really wonderful toy. But yeah, he turns into a big chunky SUV here. He definitely does a lot of compression for his vehicle mode, so he's like really hefty. He's big and chunky. Like, yeah, he's got some undercarriage kind of under there, which is not, fantastic. And I always had the issue where mine doesn't like want to stay fully kind of like locked together in the back here, which is a bit annoying, but I can deal with it. But yeah, no, rolls decently well. He comes with his big spike ball, which unfortunately does not have anywhere to properly store in this mode, but you can just kind of peg it onto the top there, which I think looks stupid, so I tend to leave it off to the side, but to each their own. But yeah, pretty decent SUV mode here. He's got the Autobot symbol I added. That's not something that was originally on the figure, but yeah, no, just big, beefy, and chunky. In terms of scale, he's a little bit oversized compared to like modern figures, and honestly, even a lot of the figures at the time too. Like, if you want him to be like a big sort of like monster truck or military vehicle or something like that, it works a little bit better. But just as a regular SUV, which is what he was in the show, he's kind of like absurdly huge. You can see that especially if you compare him to like Earthrise Optimus Prime. It's like, yeah, that scale does not work quite right. Just looking at like the wheels alone. But if he's just some other kind of big chunky military vehicle, it works a little bit better. So you can kind of stretch your imagination there. But yeah, either way, I don't have a Legacy Bulkhead, the kind of newer version, which a lot of people felt was kind of lacking, which means that like recently they actually, not they, but some third-party company did like basically a knockoff of this figure, just because Legacy Bulkhead was not really scratching the itch for a lot of people. But like I said, I don't have Legacy Bulkhead to show them off with, but I do have the breakdown version of that mold, just so you can see, he's a different type of vehicle, and I prefer Bulkhead as the kind of SUV. I know in animated he was kind of like a big military vehicle, but not one that was this like boxy. But yeah, that's what two of them look like together. And then last but not least, here he is with the original Prime breakdown, just so you can see how the two of them look. And honestly, he's even a little bit too big for him, because like the First Edition figures definitely were a little bit larger in scale than the RID figures. So it doesn't quite work perfectly, but it's close enough. But yeah, in terms of transformation, he's got a lot of really neat tricks going on to kind of get the parts where they need to go. First thing you want to do is just take the entire like hood section here and just untab it from the legs there, and then you can take this entire assembly with the front wheels, and it's good to grab it by this bit here and just like slide it down like that. It's on like a compression joint. Then we can take the legs and just untab them from each other, and then rotate them down just like this, and then flip out the toes and the heels here. He's got very stubby legs, which is accurate to how he looked in the show, but it's definitely a bit silly. That's definitely gotten a little bit more stiff throughout the years. But and then the whole front section here does some interesting things as well. Basically, these panels kind of double hinge up, and they will tab into these sections here. which you kind of want to do first. I don't know exactly what's happening here, but it's always kind of difficult to get these things to activate at the same time because it has to kind of like click down into place, and that's honestly an easier time than it usually has. But yeah, so you want those up there like that, and then you can just take this piece and just kind of wrap it around the bumper there, and then take his little headlights, and they will kind of, you know, slide out a little bit and then rotate out like that, just to give him more of that chest look that he had in the show. And then basically you want to take the back section of the roof of the car and just bend it up like that, and then you can take the whole section with the like trunk section here and just fold that up, and that enables you to take these sections and untab them from the arms in there because these kind of slid into those gaps there. And then you want to take the doors here, and basically you want to get them out around the hood pieces, and then take this whole assembly and rotate it up like that so that the windows are now going over the headlights, which is super cool. And then there's kind of a lot of stuff that you sort of have to do at once here. Basically, you want to take the arms and just straighten them out a little bit so that you can bring them out to the side around these pieces, just like that. And then we want to bring this down just a little bit so you have the clearance to flip his head panel around like that. And then you can take this and fold this down the rest of the way. There's two slots right here that correspond to these two tabs. So you just have to kind of double hinge that down until it fits into place. And then you can take the wheels and rotate them rest of the way. And then these tabs will slot into those slots on the backpack there, just like that. And then we can kind of bring the arms the rest of the way forward, take the back wheels here, and they will hinge up at an angle like this. They sit off of his back, which is a really cool way of accomplishing that. And then you want to rotate him at the bicep swivel here, which I find honestly like it kind of comes undone a lot. It's more so going back into vehicle mode. It kind of comes off the mushroom peg, but it's not too bad going this direction. And then you take the trunk section and just double hinge it up like this, which flips out this extra black detail to kind of give him the proper shape for his shoulder pads there. And then last but not least, just flip out his hands, and there we have first edition Bulkhead in his robot mode. Get that properly tabbed into place there. And yeah, he looks just fantastic, just like really spot on to how he looked in the show. Like, yeah, they've definitely translated some of the shapes of his show model into more car parts than they actually were, like in the CG. Like his shoulder pads were all black and were really just like chunks of internal bits or something like that. You didn't really see stuff like the windshield, and you didn't have like this big, you know, gap on his belly. But I think that they did a really good job of accomplishing like the shape of the character from the show actually made out of car parts. And like really, you know, it's kind of impressive. Like he's definitely got some hollow space in here, but he doesn't really like feel or look hollow from most angles, which is really nice. And they also did a pretty good job of like actually getting bits to where they had to go, like the doors, getting those to actually sit on the chest like this with that weird hinge assembly is like really impressive, with actually having the headlights kind of shining through the windows. Again, using that assembly to properly get the wheels on the back. He definitely has like a little bit, like little bits here and there of like cheating detail, like on his legs here, he's got wheels sculpted on the inside of his legs, but then he also has the wheels right there, which is always something that I've hated. I'm just like, if you can't actually get the thing where it's supposed to go, just don't sculpt a fake one. Like, he doesn't have 6 wheels, so it's kind of dumb, but at least it's not painted, so it's pretty easy to ignore. Or like this bit here is clearly meant to be, you know, like this part of the grill, which it isn't. So like I just put an Autobot logo on there to kind of like hide that a little bit, because I think that's, again, kind of silly. Like, you didn't have to put that detail there. I'm not even sure that the show model has that detail there, so that's a little strange. Or like on the back here, like these are kind of implied to be like the tail lights of the SUV, which they aren't. But you know, for the most part, like aside from like little details here and there, everything pretty much actually mechanically got to where it needed to go, which is really cool to see. But yeah, in terms of articulation, his head is on a ball joint here, so it can rotate around. It gets a little bit of wiggle, but just because of the shape of his chin, it doesn't really get like a whole lot of extra movement there. The shoulders are on swivel joints here, which can rotate all the way around, though the shoulder pads do kind of bump into the body there at a certain point. You can hinge his arm out to the side, and the shoulder pad kind of moves out of the way. He's got a bicep swivel, Pretty deep elbow band. Oh, another cool thing about the transformation is like because of how things compress, these little panels here, which sometimes get caught on the shoulder pads, but these little panels here are actually on springs, which is kind of cool. So they, just compress for vehicle mode, but just bulk out his arms a little bit more, which is cool to see. The hands can't really do anything other than fold in. He doesn't have a waist joint just because of how all that works for transformation. Hips can only go forward about that far, back about that far, and out to the side. He's got a thigh swivel. He's got technically a double jointed knee, though he really doesn't need it. And it's really strange that he has it because so the actual knee joint is up here, and that one is tighter than this secondary knee joint, which at first I thought was just like a transformation joint, but I realized it isn't. Like, this is the joint that's used for transformation entirely, and that curls up his leg all the way. So I don't know what the purpose of the second joint is, but it's just kind of annoying. He's just got this like second knee pad joint like halfway down his shin, which is not necessary to accomplish a full curl. So I kind of wish he just didn't have that joint because it's a little bit annoying, but yeah, not the end of the world. Nothing at the ankles. They're pretty much just sculpted in a slight A stance, which was pretty typical at the time. So, decent articulation for how big and chunky he is. Now, in terms of his weapons, he can sort of accomplish the blasters that he had internal to his arms in the show just by folding his hand away, because there is a peg hole there for the big, spike ball. But, that's not really nearly the size that it was in the show, but, you can kind of use it as a guns, but then you can also use it as a port to plug in the wrecking ball hand there, which looks cool. But again, doesn't have anywhere to properly store in vehicle mode and doesn't really have anywhere to store in robot mode either. So I tend to just put this off to the side. I mean, I guess you could like plug it into the shoulder. No, not even really in this mode, because now that bit of detailing gets in the way. So yeah, there's really nothing else to do with the spike ball, unfortunately. But it's certainly better than the weird giant like mech tech weapon that the RID version had. But it'd be nice to have Bulkhead have a properly storing spike ball, but I can live without it. In terms of comparisons in this mode, here he is again with Kingdom Sideswipe. So you can see he's definitely big and bulky, but he's not a super, super tall figure. So I feel like that scale works pretty well. Here he is with Earthrise Optimus Prime. And again, definitely bigger and chunky, but Optimus Prime is taller, which definitely works for how they scaled in the show. Here he is again with the Reckon Rule. I was going to say, no, the Doom and Destruction. All the stupid Amazon sets. So you can see how they look together. And that scale works decently well, I would say. And then here he is with the original Prime Breakdown, who is, just a little bit smaller than he is, which is definitely not how they scaled in the show. And you can definitely see just like by their head size alone, he's definitely scaled down a little bit. He should be kind of like up here. But it's close enough that I think that they still look pretty good together. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to him. Just a really, really fantastic figure, and still honestly the best version of Bulkhead I think that there is out there. It's nice that third-party company, or I guess just knockoff company, is doing the the updated version of this, since we haven't gotten a reissue of this guy or anything like that. And the newer versions of Bulkhead using this mold I think are not really scratching the itch for most people. So I can appreciate a knockoff company doing it for that reason, as opposed to, releasing it with figures that are still currently on the market that are just the same but cheaper and lower quality. That still feels a little scummy. But with him, I feel like it works decently well, because the aftermarket prices on this guy are kind of ridiculous. And, I didn't actually get him when he came out. I got him in the aftermarket, not now, like years ago. So it was when he was a little bit cheaper, but I got him for a pretty decent price. But yeah, no, he's just a really, really fantastic figure. And the way that they accomplish everything with the transformation, it just like with the engineering there of all these like weird little hinge armatures and stuff like that is just always just really impressive to me. Like, I still don't understand how this panel hinges over, doesn't tab in, and then can't fold out when it's in this mode. I'll never understand that. I think there's like 2 hinges in here, and one of them ends up getting locked just because this panel is tabbed into place. But still, Really, really cool. It's just a really fantastic figure and definitely looks just about exactly how I would want Bulkhead to look. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to him. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I do reviews every Tuesday and Thursday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Prime First Edition Bulkhead.